My sister thinks that my boyfriend raped her 10 years ago. So my sister was raped at a party 10 years ago. She never knew who did it. She said she had a general idea of what he looked like, but not who he was. I moved across the country for college and I'm still here. I met my boyfriend 6 months ago. I recently introduced him to my family over a video chat, and my sister immediately disconnected. I called her after and she said that he raped her. She thinks that he's the one who raped her 10 years ago based off a vague memory of what the guy looked like. I know my boyfriend, he definitely wouldn't rape anyone, and if that wasn't enough, he's never even been to my home state. I told my sister all of this, and she said that he's lying and I have to break up with him. I told her I wouldn't, and she said that if I ever want to talk to her again, I'll break up with him. We're really good together and I don't want to break up, but I also want to talk to my sister. It's been 2 weeks and she still hasn't responded to any other messages, except to tell me to break up with him. I don't know what to do. I was raped as a small girl when I was in the park, during broad daylight, and with at least one onlooker who did nothing to help me, and sometimes I think I see a person who resembles the rapist. Even though that can't be, because this is almost 30 years ago now and the guy would be at least in his 60s by now, and the guys I seem to recognize are no older than 40, resembling how the rapist looked at the time. But my subconscious seems to have certain facial features resembling this guy imprinted, and even though my memory of this guy is so faded, there will be rare instances where suddenly, I think I recognize him. Even though it is rationally not possible that it's the same guy. It is a very strange and uncomfortable feeling of being on high alert, with my hairs standing on end. Is that how you say it in English? I'm just sharing this to say that most likely, something about his appearance triggered her subconscious memory of the event, and she reacted with panic. As someone else has pointed out, she should seek professional help. Be supportive and offer your help in getting her that support if she is open to it, but don't let her past trauma affect your current relationship, because that's not healthy, and will ultimately help neither of you. She needs to face this issue if she wants to get over it. If she is not open to it, as sad as that would be for you to not be able to communicate with her, at least for now, until she decides otherwise, let her be for a while, and let her figure out for herself that her connection with you is something she values and treasures, enough so that she is willing to see that you and your BF are not involved in her trauma, and perhaps she will use this incident as a stepping stone, and nudge to get the help she needs and deserves. I've had that experience and it can be incredibly jarring. In college we had a new housemate move in who had a strong resemblance to someone who had raped me. I know my rapist, so obviously didn't think it was him, but it was startling and stressful every time I'd be sitting at the kitchen table, and he'd come down for breakfast. I felt afraid every time I was in the same room as him, even though I knew, logically, it wasn't the same person. I actually made a point to get to know and befriend him to try to reconnect that face with a different personality. Lovely dude, one of the coolest people I know. I'm super glad we're friends and it really helped me in a number of ways. Hopefully once Op and her sister figure out the actual logic of this, it's exceedingly unlikely due to age etc., she can get to know the BF and recontextualize his face. A lot of people look alike, and it's a relief to not be jumping out of your skin every time you see someone with X, Y, Z features. I was actually on the receiving end of a similar situation a few years ago. I was in retail management for a few different companies over the course of a decade. I was transferred to one store in particular, and one of the employees automatically hated me because I looked exactly like her daughter's supposed abusive boyfriend. I had never met her or anyone even remotely related to her in my life, but she immediately had a grudge against me. She even openly acknowledged the fact that it was unreasonable behavior, but was still borderline incapable of separating me from a person who was very much not me. After a few weeks things slowly got better as she was able to clearly recognize that I was not, in fact, her daughter's abusive boyfriend, but it made that initial transition into the store kind of a pain in the ass. It's a smart thought, but my bet is it would backfire. If she's this convinced already, her bias will probably influence her to see the picture of the boyfriend at 15, overlaid onto her memory of her attacker, and take that as absolute proof. Op's sister is suffering from a legitimate full-blown delusion. It's generally unwise to try to disprove mentally ill people's delusions in the same way you would approach a healthy person's misconceptions. Facts and evidence just get twisted around to further support the delusional conclusion they've already come to. Again, this is a smart and logical thought. One that has a solid chance of blowing up in Op's face. There's a good chance the sister, upon learning that she's been tricked like this, absolutely loses her shit. If you've never dealt with a person experiencing delusions before, I can see how these seem like solutions. But delusion is itself rooted in a rejection of reality and rationality. You can't really use those as tools to fight against them. If the person was open to logic and evidence, they wouldn't be delusional in the first place. Op's sister needs the help of therapists, psychiatrists with advanced degrees and lots of experience. This situation is far beyond what any layperson is capable of helping with. Be as sympathetic to your sister as you can. You believe her about being raped. You are very hesitant to connect your new beau to that event. Unusual claims require good evidence. I can easily believe that your man looks very like the rapist, and that it is traumatizing, and that your sister needs sympathy. But how can she prove it? Hiring a private eye to see if he really did visit your state. Maybe you can ask her how likely it would be for a 15-year-old, no license, to get to the party. I'm assuming anonymity means no adult supervision or friend driving. I would talk to your boyfriend and explain your sister was triggered back to a very traumatic memory, and you need to help set her mind at ease. Is there any way he would trust you to talk to his mom or dad? Just to be able to tell your sister you confirmed with his parents that he's never been to your home state, and he couldn't possibly be the one she is thinking of. I don't know if she would accept that answer, but if your parents know the situation, maybe they can try and talk it through with her in person. She needs to get in front of a therapist ASAP to help her as well. My heart breaks for her. Be patient and hopefully your boyfriend doesn't take this personally. His features just happen to remind her of her very real nightmare. I hope it gets resolved. I hope your sister is okay. It's not a matter of wanting to think properly. With PTSD, the critical thinking part of your brain shuts down, quite literally. You can be trained slowly over time to bring it back online, but it's a monumental effort and can take a long time to develop this skill. The reason why she's being so logical is that her trauma was never resolved. In her mind, her sister is now betraying her and she's not safe. The fact that reality is very different doesn't really matter to her. She's unable to grasp that reality. She feels all the same feelings she did when she was raped, but with the added betrayal of her family. And now she's stuck in a loop of feeling extreme danger. I've been in similar places. She needs a therapist incredibly badly. As a woman who has been raped, you start to see a rapist in almost every man that looks alike. But it is not true that every man is your rapist, and I think it's not that plausible that your boyfriend is her rapist. Due to everything you've mentioned, his age, the fact that he lives across the country, it confirms for me way more. Also, the memory is vague. Over time the memory changes. I know where she's going through, but this has to stop. For your sister, I highly recommend doing trauma therapy. It might bring up more memories. Until your sister gets help for the trauma she had, your only choice is to give up on one of them. If you stay with your BF, your sister will push the brunt of her trauma onto you, making you the scapegoat, and it will make her that much more likely to resist going to therapy, because you sided with her rapist. If you give up your BF, then you will resent your sister, and there is a good chance she will pull this again because you caved in the first time. You are going to need a third party like a mutual friend or family to convince her into therapy, and have a therapist explain why your 15 years old BF from another state couldn't have raped her at 19. There have been documented cases of people identifying the wrong person in an attack, and absolutely believing it was that person. The brain hates having blanks, and it will fill in those blanks whether they are accurate or not. In this case, that unresolved trauma in your sister latched onto your boyfriend's image and filled in that missing link. She feels it, and the brain hates giving up what feels right. The big worry goes beyond just her not talking to you. In some of those cases, the people falsely accused have had their lives and careers ruined, and many have spent years in prison before finally being exonerated. I recommend your boyfriend try to make sure he has documentation that establishes a rock-solid alibi for where he was back then. He may even need to retain legal counsel. If your sister pursues this, it could seriously hurt him, you, and tear your family apart. This makes me think a lot of the case of Penny Bjornsson, who misidentified Steve Avery as her attacker, leading to him spending 18 years in prison. I heard her speak about it, can't remember if it was part of Making a Murderer or on a podcast, and she still doesn't react to seeing her actual attacker in the same way she reacted to Avery when she made the identification. She says something similar: "I've seen a picture of Gregory Allen, and he doesn't look real to me. I would swear I've never seen him before in my life. I look at his picture, I can't feel angry, I think he could walk in the room, and my blood pressure wouldn't even go up. I still see Stephen Avery as my assailant, even though I understand he wasn't." Definitely something your sister needs help working through, since it seems basically impossible that your BF was the rapist, but at the same time, she clearly believes it. I honestly don't know what it will take to bridge the gap there.